You treat me like this? I'll kill when I get out. If you give me 20 years, I'll kill adults when I'm released. If you give me a life sentence and I get out on parole when I'm too old to kill adults, I'll go to a kindergarten and kill children. Brandon White said this, and he did exactly that. This cold-blooded killer is considered a landmark figure in American criminal history, having mercilessly shot and killed 16 people in just over a year and a half, including military personnel and police officers. Yet, a man who wielded a gun and killed so wantonly chose to meekly submit to handcuffs when he was finally caught, all because his mother was there. The word brutal is not enough to fully describe Brandon White. His complex psyche is something we must analyze and reflect on more deeply. And the case we will dissect today is the Brandon White case, ranked as the top of the 10 most notorious cases in the United States in 1997. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next chilling stories. Now let's dive into the case. Time, September 1983, May 1994. Location, New Haven Penitentiary, Stone Creek City, Four Corners region. In 1993, Brandon White had been in prison for 3 years for theft. Unlike other inmates, he was one of the most loosely supervised. During the day, he herded cattle with local ranchers, and at night he slept in a small cabin next to the cattle pen, not always under the watchful eye of guards. But one day in September, something happened. Billy Johnson, who herded cattle with Brandon, suddenly vanished. In this desolate western region, prison escapes sometimes occurred. So when Billy's disappearance was discovered, everyone's first reaction was that he had run off. But when the prison staff checked his file, something didn't add up. Billy Johnson had only 1 year left on his sentence. If he stayed put, he'd be out soon. Why would he risk a permanent record in a longer sentence? Stranger still, all of Billy's personal belongings were still in his cell, with no signs of being packed. The prison questioned Brandon, who shared a living space with Billy, but he insisted that guy ran off. Without any solid evidence, Billy Johnson's disappearance was officially ruled an escape. What the prison didn't know was that Billy had not escaped. He had been killed and buried in a hole near the cattle pen. The killer was Brandon White. Days earlier, they had a fight. Billy punched Brandon, who, to everyone's surprise, remained silent, which made Billy even more arrogant. "If you're a man, get mad," he taunted. "Don't embarrass all the city guys." That comment filled Brandon with a deep, silent rage. He just said, "Okay, just you wait. I'll get mad for you in a few days." One day, Brandon approached Billy, who was resting by the cattle pen. He squatted down and said, "I dropped some money in a crack and can't get it out. Can you help me? I'll buy you a meal." Billy, thinking Brandon had finally humbled himself, unsuspectingly bent down to look. But as he did, Brandon swung a sledgehammer, striking Billy's head from behind. The blow was so quick that Billy had no time to scream. Brandon then hit him 4 or 5 more times, stopping only when he was sure Billy was dead. "Finally, you're quiet," Brandon mumbled after his first kill. He then dragged the body and threw it into a pre-dug hole. During the subsequent interrogation, he remained emotionless and used his prepared alibi to deceive the guards. He continued his free days of herding cattle, but the act of killing haunted him. Every quiet night, he would remember that moment, a memory that brought a strange sense of excitement. In May 1994, half a year after Billy's death, he killed again. Time, 1991. Location, Stone Mountain County, New Hope City. Brandon White was born into a working-class family in New Hope City. His father's early death shattered his family. His mother, unable to raise him alone, sent him to live with relatives. At 14, he returned to the city. As an adult, he worked, got married, and had twin children. In 1981, at the age of 23, Brandon worked as a manual laborer at a power plant in Stone Mountain County. Uneducated and without skills, he performed the same monotonous, heavy work every day. He thought his life would be stuck there until a militia training session at the factory changed everything. For the first time, he held a firearm, a .22 caliber assault rifle. He hit all 3 targets, a rare achievement among the other workers. From then on, he became obsessed with shooting, even borrowing an air rifle from a relative. He practiced hunting birds, then rabbits, and his skills grew. In a year, he became an expert marksman, hitting every target from 15 to 20 yards away. But being an expert shooter brought no benefit to a laborer's life. The constant poverty weighed on him. Wanting a better life for his children, he started stealing. On May 8, 1983, he was arrested and sentenced to 4 years for petty theft. In the early 1980s, society was not as stable. Petty theft and fighting were common. To restore order, the country launched a great cleanup campaign. All crimes were prosecuted quickly and severely. Brandon was one of the first caught in this crackdown. He couldn't believe his small thefts earned him a 4-year sentence. His wife divorced him and took the kids. Brandon felt his life was filled with injustice. Why did others get away with it? Why did his wife abandon him when he was only trying to provide? Full of resentment, he entered prison, telling himself it was just bad luck. But what happened next completely extinguished his last bit of hope and pushed him onto a dark path. In prison, he worked hard and hoping for a reduced sentence and to see his children. In 1986, as he was about to be released, an inmate suddenly reported that before his arrest, Brandon had committed another crime, stealing a bag of corn and hitting the homie owner with a stick. After a police investigation, the court added 10 years to his sentence, including 5 years of labor in a remote region. His accuser was deemed a model prisoner and was released early. This event planted the seeds of true hatred in Brandon White's heart. 4 years of hard work were for nothing. He made his now infamous threat, turning his rage against society. After serving an extra 5 years, his city residency was revoked and he was transferred to a labor camp in the Four Corners region. He was 30 with 5 more years to go. His ex-wife had remarried and they had little contact. But one day, his daughter sent him a letter. He was overjoyed until he read it. In the letter, she complained that because of her criminal father, she and her brother were constantly ridiculed. From that day on, Brandon's feeling of injustice exploded into a desire for revenge against society. The murders of Billy Johnson and others were just his first steps. Time, March, April 1990. Location, Stone Creek City, Four Corners region, New Hope City. On March 15, 1996, with no evidence against him, Brandon was released. He walked out of New Haven Penitentiary, his mind full of plans. He wanted to unleash his rage on society. To him, petty theft was nothing. Only killing could truly be an act of defiance. In his mind, a gun was the most effective weapon. In prison, he had learned everything he could about firearms from a former soldier. He began stockpiling ammunition by trading with ranchers for lost livestock. He managed to hide 75 rifle rounds and 50 pistol rounds near the cattle pen. He taped the ammunition to his body and boarded a train for New Hope City. He arrived on April 12th after 13 years away. His old apartment was now occupied by his brother, so he moved in with his mother. He briefly considered starting over, but his criminal record made it impossible to get a driver's license or open a business. He went to the police station to get a new ID, but the officer told him it would take at least 6 months. His family suggested he offer a bribe, which infuriated him. "I don't even have enough to eat. Where am I supposed to get a bribe?" he fumed. Back home, he fidgeted with the ammunition he'd brought back, his mind a jumble of frustration. The hardships of life kept crushing him, making him feel abandoned. That night, he decided to officially begin his plan of revenge. He had the ammo. All he needed was a gun. First gun robbery, March 31st, 1996. Brandon scouted the High Point Power Plant in Stone Mountain County. At 9:40 p.m., a guard, Frank Miller, was on duty. He was carrying an empty rifle and an empty ammo pouch. A strange stomach cramp forced Frank to double over. A dark figure appeared holding a large metal bar. Brandon had been waiting. He swung the bar, knocking the guard unconscious, then grabbed the rifle and ran. A few minutes later, Frank regained consciousness and called for help. The police were put on high alert. To Brandon, the first success was a huge confidence boost. Robbing a guard was easier than he thought. This became the start of his assault on armed forces. Subsequent attacks. April 7 to 22, 1996. April 7, he attacked a guard, Keith Williams, at a National Guard base, but failed to get his pistol. April 8th, while fleeing, he drove the wrong way and was stopped by 6 police officers. He opened fire, wounding 3 of them. And April 22nd, he shot and killed a guard, Jack Thompson, at the National Guard firing range and stole his gun and ammo pouch. Over 22 days in New Hope City, Brandon launched 4 attacks on military and police, stole 1 rifle, killed 1 guard, and wounded 6 officers. This became one of the most serious cases in the country's history. He realized the guards in New Hope City might not be carrying live rounds, so he decided to lay low in his hometown of Riverbend, Northwood County. There he met a woman named Sarah Cooper. Time, July-September 1996. Location, Riverbend, Northwood County. In July 96, Brandon took a bus back to Riverbend. On the way, he spotted an ammunition depot for a local artillery unit. The thought of robbing it became his new obsession. He observed the guards and confirmed they had live weapons. After mapping out a plan, he returned to New Hope City. It was raining heavily for 3 days straight, which he saw as a blessing. On the 3rd day, July 24th, he loaded his stolen rifle, wrapped it in plastic, and taped it to his bicycle frame. He wrapped the remaining ammunition around his waist. All of his weapons were perfectly concealed under his raincoat. Avoiding the bus station, he cycled to a remote town and took a bus back to Riverbend. He buried the rifle and ammo in 2 separate locations he had marked earlier. 2 days later, on July 26th, he returned to Riverbend. Wearing gloves, he cleaned the rifle, checked the ammunition, and waited in the darkness of a field near the barracks. At 11:20 p.m., he shot and killed 2 guards, Patrick Johnson and Brandon Lee. He then rushed out and stole an M16 rifle from Patrick's body before disappearing. The entire robbery and escape took less than 10 minutes. With 2 successful attacks under his belt, Brandon's confidence soared. He believed his speed was much greater than the police's response time. He went back to New Hope City, where he laid low for a month. On August 27th, he took Sarah Cooper with him to retrieve the rifle from Riverbend. Witnessing the gun, Sarah was terrified, and Brandon told her the whole story. He briefly considered killing her to silence her, but her quiet demeanor made him hesitate. He then decided to shift his focus from stealing guns to robbing for money. Time, December 1996. Location, Northgate District, West Side, New Hope City. With 2 rifles and a large cache of ammunition, Brandon's mindset changed. A gun could be used to get money. In December 1996, he spent days scouting a black market for tobacco. He planned to rob a dealer during a transaction. On a cold day, December 15th, he loaded his rifle and hid it in an alley. The next morning, he watched the market. When his target was closed, his frustration grew. He then spotted a woman holding a large black leather bag. It was bulging with cash, at least a few $1,000s. He pulled out his rifle, pulled his hat down to hide his face, and charged. He aimed the gun at the woman's chest and fired. The shot rang out, followed by a scream. The bullet went through the woman, hitting a man behind her. In the chaos, he also fired into a group of men. 3 lives were taken for a bag of cash. His target had now changed from military to civilians. Since there were no surveillance cameras, the police had to rely on vague witness statements. He realized that outside of New Hope City, most places were a clean slate for him. He moved on. A new accomplice. 2 months later, in May 1997, Brandon told his mother he was taking Sarah Cooper to her hometown. In reality, they were going to Stone Creek City, where he was once imprisoned. He wanted to steal more ammo. There he met an old cellmate, Will Smith, who was now a security guard. Will was still in awe of Brandon and agreed to join him in a life of crime. A new crime spree, August 1997. June 1997. Their first attempt to rob a military training center failed. They had to run across a desert for over 20 hours to escape. July 5, a passerby saw a gun in Brandon's hand. He immediately shot and killed the witness. August 8th, they ambushed a police storm. They killed 2 officers, John Miller and his partner, to steal their pistols. August 18th, Brandon and Will decided to hit the Frontier Hotel in Eagle Creek, where the Trade Expo was taking place. The place was packed with merchants carrying huge amounts of money. They lay in wait for their prey. On August 19th, they spotted 2 merchants carrying large duffel bags. Brandon shot and killed the older man, then a security guard, and finally pursued and killed the younger man, taking the bag with $800,000. He also killed 2 innocent bystanders in the chaos. An angry crowd chased them. A boiler worker, Dave Miller, grabbed a shovel and ran after them, only to be shot by Brandon. He and Will escaped. Will, scared and nervous, confessed to everything. With his help, the police learned Brandon's name and location. They prepared a large raid, but before they stormed his house, the police chief used a loudspeaker. "Brandon White, we have the house surrounded. Your mother is inside. Don't make her get hurt." Brandon emerged moments later, unarmed. He looked at his mother, then at the police, and knelt to accept the handcuffs. The manhunt was over. The most wanted man in the country had surrendered willingly, not to a show of force, but because of a single, deeply rooted emotional tie to his mother. His final ironic act proved that even the most brutal killer has a human weakness.